Stand by for dispatch. Dispatching Mr. Bacon's neighborhood, requesting host Jerry Pino to respond to the podcast.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Mr. Bacon's neighborhood. Today, I'm excited that, again, we're at Gritty Grinds in Auburn. I'd like to thank Jackie, the general manager, for allowing us to come here again today. It's a good neutral point to meet. Gritty Grinds coffee is good and it's amazing. So if you're ever in the Auburn area, stop by. And I'd also like to shout out to Sam and Jacob, the assistant managers who are helping us today. So today I'm excited. We've got Janelle and Sally. Basically, they are what I refer to as, you'll see in my Facebook posts when we're talking, the voices in the ceiling. I work with both of these ladies down in Westbrook, where they work for Westbrook Fire Alarm. And Westbrook Fire Alarm also dispatches Westbrook PD. So you guys all know a little bit about me, obviously. So today we're not really going to talk about me that much. Just my relationship with Janelle and Sally and Janelle, and professionally how we met each other, and then how it turned into a friendship. And I consider Sally to be one of my closest friends now, and we only get to see each other maybe once a month. But that goes back to like when I talk about my friend Jeff Nino, who went to junior high school, graduated. There was like almost 8 years we didn't talk to each other, but we just pick up where we always leave off. Fortunately, now I get to see Jeff way more than that. But so basically, guys, as you know, this is unscripted, and let's start with you, Sally, since you're just to my left. Basically, just tell us a little about yourself and what brought you into the dispatch world.
I'm Sally. I honestly just needed a job, and I knew one of the PD officers, and she said, "There's openings in dispatch, why don't you apply?" And I did, and I got the job. And I've been there for almost 8 years now, and it's excellent. I've met very good friends along the way, and I love it.
It's awesome. What were you doing before you got into dispatch?
I was teaching.
Teaching. That's interesting. What grades?
I did both babies at a daycare, and then I taught high school.
Awesome. So I'm assuming you went to college at some point.
I did. I went to St. Joe's for education and English.
Not a lot of smart people get accepted there. It's amazing. That's a joke.
I'm pretty sure everyone goes to St. Joe's.
Yeah, it is a good place to have lunch at night.
It was a good school,
Yeah.
and then I liked teaching. I liked the kids, but it became very political, and I did not like that.
Yeah.
So I just wanted out, and luckily my friend told me about dispatch, and I was like, why not? I'll try it.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Janelle.
So I'm Janelle, and I was actually bartending at the time, and Kevin Collins, who's now the chief in Buxton, came in and he was telling me about dispatching, because he was dispatching at the time, and he was like, you'd be really good at this. You're really good at multitasking. You're really good at just paying attention to a lot of things that are going on at once. He's like, you should come in and shadow me and see if you like it. So I went into Buxton. It was really boring at first, but I saw a couple of things happen, and I was like, ooh, this could be super fun.
So curious, Buxton, did they have their own dispatch at the time?
Yeah, so they still do.
Oh, really?
Yep, they still have their own. It's really small. I think there's only like 3 of them right now, and only one person works at a time, I believe.
They're not their own PSAP.
Nope, Scarborough's their PSAP. But I went in and I shadowed him, I think twice, and I went home and I was like, this could be a job I could get addicted to. And so I ended up applying to Buxton. I worked there for a couple months. I think it was almost a year that I worked there. The gentleman who trained me was a full-time dispatcher in Portland, and he was just war story after war story, and I was like, that's so awesome.
Yeah.
So
that's the hard part about our jobs. There's always war stories, right?
Yeah. And so I then started talking to, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Steve Clifton, but he's on fire service.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can't remember where he's working now.
Buxton, actually.
Is he?
Yeah,
everyone just returns home.
Yeah, well, he was in, I've met Steve many times.
Yeah.
Great guy. He was in Standish full time.
Yeah.
He was actually down in Cumberland for a little bit recently.
Okay.
And then I don't know if I saw it online or talked to him, via messages.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. My brain still doesn't do well.
Yeah.
I used to be Jerry the Elephant, as you guys know. I'm not very good at that.
Yeah. So we were driving up to the academy to take our class together. And he was like, "Hey, because we were complaining about Buxton getting ordered in a lot, and
That's
not
tough.
the pay wasn't the best at the time."
Right.
And so he was like, "Hey, I know the director. I know the director.
You're good.
I know the director in Westbrook. I'll reach out to him. You should apply."
Oh.
And so I applied in Westbrook. Steve called Greg and was like, "Hey,
So Greg was
my
here.
friend Janelle just applied. You should interview her." And so I had called Greg after that, and he was like, "We just closed our process, so unfortunately you got it in a little bit too late, but why don't you come in and have an interview and we'll see where things go." And fast forward, almost 10 and a half years now.
Oh,
I've
wow.
been
So
there.
both of you get quite a span there.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So maybe for some of our people that don't know a lot about dispatch, as a firefighter and an EMS provider my whole life, I can tell you we know all about it. Ask us.
You can ask any firefighter, they'll say that.
We will absolutely tell you we know what's going on. But for people who don't know, some of the acronyms we're using, a PSAP, so basically when Maine went to 911, the calls actually go into PSAP centers. And it has to have so much call volume. But if towns or some small towns that want to have their own dispatch, what happens is the 911 call will go into a PSAP, they take it, and then they flag it down over to the Buxtons. Trying to think who else.
So, for example, we're Falmouth and
For
Yarmouth.
Falmouth, yes. Falmouth and Yarmouth gets dispatched. And you guys, do you EMD their calls and then give it to them?
So we do emergency medical dispatch and emergency fire dispatch for Falmouth and Yarmouth. So we process their calls and then we'll give it to them, and they'll do the dispatch, but we do the initial emergency call.
And so when they say they give them the call comes in my phone. They then connect it with the dispatcher who's actually going to hit what some would say in the station. We call it the VOC. For pay call guys or people that are off duty, we call it the tone, the alert.
The voice in the ceiling.
I call it the voice in the ceiling only because many war stories, it can be good and it can be bad. So to kind of give you what I know about dispatch and why I've always been so respectful about dispatch is I could never do your jobs, not even in a heartbeat. And so when I started at J-Fire, we had J-Base. And they dispatched JPD, J-Fire. So obviously I think we were only doing like 100 calls, and that might even be high back then when I started.
A year?
A year, fire calls. But the police department, as you guys know, is obviously way busier. So I'm not even going to guess. I'll talk to my friend Mike Mahir and ask him about how much call volume comes in to JPD. But what a lot of people don't realize is PD gets called for absolutely what you see online, but the neighbor's dog is barking. I think the star winked at me. There's somebody in my house maybe, and that's okay. Call 911. I'm not saying don't call 911. Somebody stole my sign. I think the best one, and we don't do politics on this, but the best one I heard was police dispatcher answered the phone, and the person said, "I'd like to make a police report." And they're like, "Okay, okay, ma'am, what's going on?" She said, "My sign was stolen." And the dispatcher was like, "Okay, tell me what the sign was." She said, "It's a defund the police sign." So even when the people in their community have a sign that say defund, they still call 911 to talk to the police department to file a complaint.
We get a lot of ironic calls like that.
Yeah, I'm sure we could like literally do a stand-up, right, with the information. Like some of the calls you get, like I worked as a tech in the ER, and at 3 a.m. some of the times that phone rang, you'd go, you realize you called another human and are saying that right now, right? You're like, yeah, I'm sure you get those.
Sometimes I repeat back what they're saying just so that they can realize that they're not making any sense.
Yeah, right. So, can you say that again?
Yeah.
So then they have, the larger fire alarms, we call them, which is always weird to me. Like, I love history and I love tradition. I think there's always keep tradition. But we all know what fire alarm is, right? It's the thing on the wall. And it's I always find it odd. I'm calling you and you put on numbers and restrike
exactly
people.
what I sound
So like when people get on the radio and go restrike recall the alarm, if I was a dispatcher, I'd stand up and be like, it's recall.
We start doing that.
Yeah, you should. Because, you don't... In the old days, what people don't realize is when they say recall the alarm, they literally would reset the fire alarm. And so it's just one of those things in the fire service when you ask somebody, why do we still do that? They go, we just do it.
Speaking of history, I think a lot of the reason why firefighters specifically make the joke that they could do our job or they could do it better or anything like that is... Back in the day, most firefighters would be the dispatcher.
So
but all they would do is,
the fire
house is on fire, great, and then hang the phone up and send them out. Where now we have all of our protocols.
So you actually, Westbrook was like that.
Yep.
Rumford was like that.
I think most departments were like that.
What would happen is the fire call would come into dispatch or the fire station, and they dispatch the alarm at the fire station. There were even some departments when the call came in, you would, as the dispatcher, they did watches. Mm-hmm. So if the phone rang, it was like in the service, you had night watches and day watches. And when it was your turn, if the phone rang, you took the call, then you left.
Yep.
And the way it works is if nobody answered the phone, it would go to another place and another place. So it's just kind of interesting how we've got, technology. Like we all hold a computer in our hand. And I'm pretty sure I've said this in the podcast because that's what Jerry does is he repeats himself. But I remember in elementary school looking at a textbook in like 3rd grade and it said the first computer was 4 stories tall. And now we hold it in our hand, like it's amazing to me. It was 4 stories tall. Think about it. Like, it's just wild. And I know
on a tower?
No, it was actually the first computer was 4 stories tall for everything that's in your phone, for everything to work, to like,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I didn't either. I was in school reading the book.
Thanks for teaching me.
Yeah, well, that's the part of this. I'm just here for you guys. Yeah. You mentioned, and then I went to United Ambulance from Jay, by the way. So United Ambulance was in the 20,000 of calls, 20,000 times that phone rings. Between transfers, they call them non-emergencies, we call them transfers, and then emergency calls. Mm-hmm. And they also dispatched a lot of small fire departments at the time. They did Green, Sabattis, Mechanic Falls, and maybe New Gloucester. Gary, I wish you were with me right now. You'd help me with this. I know we did EMS together, but maybe we didn't call them. Maybe it was just Green, Sabattis, and Mechanic Falls. So anyway, our dispatchers not only would take the call volume of EMS in Lewiston, then on top would do fire departments. And so this is kind of funny that the 3 of us are friends because all through my career, I've always had dispatcher friends. Warren Bryant, Josie, Randy down in JPD. I can't remember Randy, but he was always just like, oh, I love Randy. Warren was a great guy, and the last time I saw him, God rest his soul, he passed now. He was a head of selectmen when I went back to Jay, so we got to talk. And then when I went to United, there was Andrea. Andrea Matea was she was about as tall as Jenny. And Janelle over here. Literally, when they sit in the high seat, the feet kind of kick. Yeah.
That's how I am now with our new chairs.
Yeah, and literally when new employees come in, Andrea would look at you and go, bad egg. Good egg. Nobody knew what she would.
I wonder if people see me like that now.
That is exactly it.
She was always right.
Don't say it out loud.
And then, God rest her soul, I could say that the stuff she used to say to people on the phone, I'd have tears in my eyes. So I worked midnight to 8 for 2 years with Lucian.
She would get along really well.
And I loved it because I'd go in early after my first wife, Steph, would go to bed because I'd keep her up because someone's like, what are you doing? You want to watch a movie? Yeah. I know you're sleeping, but you want to talk.
I know you're sleeping, but
right, yeah. I know, Jerry, who never stops talking. So I'd just drive to work, and me and Lucian would meet up about 10:30 debating, what he was doing. But we'd always go into dispatch. And Andrea would be like, you're going to be busy tonight.
It's terrifying.
Well, the first time I slept over United, and This isn't like She Was, but have you ever seen the movie with Adam Sandler where he goes, "Yes, Satan"?
Yes.
I was laying in the bed, and United, back before computers, when you guys get the call numbers and you hit the incident and it assigns it and the times, and then there's even systems now where we can log our computer and it syncs the times from dispatch. I mean, what can't you do nowadays, right? But back then you heard this in the middle of the night. You'd hear.
You're gonna break this table.
And that was them stamping the pieces of paper
Oh yeah.
for the call.
We still have those stamped papers.
And so the stamped paper, one would go into the truck mailbox. So when you came back to write your run sheet, you could get the time and number. And then the one went to reporting, one went to the business office, one went to QA, and that's how we tracked. And then, Andrea, she used to be like, "Oh, that doesn't sound very good." This is before EMT dispatching. And even after, really, I mean, let's be honest, Andrea, she'd say, "Well, how much you weigh?" "Oh, and you're on the 4th floor." "Well, I'm sending 2 new guys, and it's Dick Sillick and Paul Perron who got their medic licenses when I was born and worked at United since I was born. Yeah, they knew where they were going, but she's like, "Yeah, they're new guys. You might want to go downstairs. They'll meet you." always for the crew, she was.
That's funny because sometimes we take medical calls and it doesn't sound great or there's something about it and we know who we're sending and deep down we're like, good luck.
Someone else.
Yeah. And then daytime, nighttime, then I had John Hawley. I love John. I think he's in charge of a school district now, but he's been a town manager. He worked as like a clerk in the town hall in Mechanic Falls while he was going to school to become a town manager. And he worked full time at United midnight to 8 with me and Lucian. It was me, Lou, and John. And that guy could do a call. I called him one time and I was like, "Hey John, can I have times?" He's like, "For what?" You're gonna love the night shift. I was like, "The call we're on?" And he goes, "Oh yeah, huh." Never missed a call. He was in the mode. But
I miss when we used to work nights.
yeah, I could say I like nights
Nights
because
are fun.
I'm a supervisor, so I can say this. There's no supervisors. Everybody that works nights wants to work nights, or they're new, so we're still gonna save the world. We're gonna have fun. I love the ERs back then. But Dave Byron and Dave Dutel were my day dispatches. And Dave was disabled. Dave Dutel was disabled from the war. He took a bullet in his back, so he had leg braces. Dave Byron always had a handicap because of the way he was born with his legs. But both of them worked on an ambulance when they met for county EMA and Androscoggin had an ambulance and they worked on it with their disabilities, no bitching, no nothing. Yeah. And then when they got older, like when I met them, they were young 20-ish, probably in their 60s, late 60s. And I just saw Dutel, and I talked to Byron down in Nashville now. Dutel, I think, lives in Florida, but I just saw him recently in town. He still has his house. And I used to love those guys because I'd be like, Unit 6 Central, and Dutel was the best. What did you find now, Jerry? Because literally stuff was... Everyone always thought I was driving to find this stuff. No, it literally just always falls in my lap. And I'm like, ugh. But I loved that at United, but I learned a lot about how busy it was. And then, so when you're sitting there all night, like John called us one night, I'll never forget this. You could page rooms individually, but all our ambulances were busy at the time. And you hear, "Jerry and Lucian to dispatch right now. I need you in dispatch." And I'm like, holy. So we run up to dispatch, and he had a fire in Sabatis, and he had the people trapped on the phone. So he was dispatching the fire department, and 911 phone was ringing, so we're answering that, dispatching our trucks, and just writing everything down on paper, like, "Oh, we're gonna make this work," And he had the people on the phone that were trapped in the building, so he was toning fire departments and telling them where he was, and telling the people, one guy. And that was, and he usually handled that a lot by themselves when they were in there. And God love one of my best medic friends who taught me how to do medicine a lot. One of the guys, so many. I'm so lucky. A lot of guys and girls taught me, but Mike Joyce used to work in that team.
Yeah.
And he was amazing. That was his 8 hours for his 40. Crazy. So Janelle, I know you and I also, can you guys talk, like, I know Sally and I did the dispatch stuff together, right? We were pretty much Jerry the firefighter, paramedic, Sally the communications. But you're involved in a little bit more stuff, and you've always kind of jumped up. You're one of those, in a good way, you've tackled more. So why don't you tell us a little bit more what you do besides just dispatch?
On what aspect?
Well, I could say that you do. I'm going to call her out. She does a lot with peer support, which we can talk about that in a whole nother podcast.
Peer support, you do the schools. You do
What does she do with the school stuff?
I know she does the schools.
So I do a lot of public education. So 911 is everyone knows what 911 is. You call 911, you know what you're going to get. But not a lot of kids know when to call 911 because you have the movies that are like, oh, there's a cat stuck in a tree, call 911. Or we get calls from kids that are like, my sister took my toys and my mom's not home, so I don't have anyone else. So I had gotten a pretty bad call, and I was like, why don't we go into the schools and talk to the kids, because they don't know who they're calling, they don't know any history behind it, they don't know anything. So I started working with you when you were doing the fire education at the schools during Fire Prevention Week, and I was like, can I piggyback off you? Can I go with you and just?
Absolutely.
Yeah, you said absolutely not. No, thank you.
No.
But no, so
Did I
yes.
just have my overtime without people involved?
Yes, without your voice behind me for once. And so we started going into schools. I started going with you. And fast forward 9 years, I've done it every year since. And now you left us. And
I didn't leave. I'm still there in heart and spirit.
So
I am
we
one of the only guys that left Westbrook. They don't call Dead Jerry when I show up.
well, so we kept the program
Do it
going.
to everybody else.
And we still do it. And now we've expanded it. I go to daycares now. I go to, we have a couple of different intercultural community centers in the city. And I go to them now too, so I do a lot of that stuff.
And it's very nice because now, especially for the kids, they have a face to put to 911.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
a lot
I
of
go
kids
through
will see
Hannaford.
her.
Yeah, I'll go through Hannaford and they'll be like, you're a 911.
I was going to prod you for that. And you must know as a teacher how valuable that is.
Yeah,
Like,
a lot of small kids won't make a call
but now
because
there's
they don't know who's going to answer.
Yeah.
Like they'll call mom,
You can see
dad,
the
and
difference
grandma,
now.
and grandpa, but they
Yeah.
won't dial 911 because who's going to answer?
I
the
always say when I go into the schools too is the kids are actually our best callers because they actually listen to us and they are calm enough
They have
that
no bad habits.
that they can answer the questions and they're not trying to talk over us because they're actually listening to what we need. So it's good to go in and get face to face with them as to what we need and.
It goes back to my old statement. I wish the world would live like our children. And the reason is we haven't given them any bad habits. They haven't heard us talk. They are literally the true sermon of the world.
The last couple of years, I've been giving them homework, and I've been saying, "Hey, go home and teach your parents what I'm telling you."
Did you steal that from me?
No,
Okay,
sure
good.
didn't. So, but like, go home and teach your parents that, and maybe the adults will be better at it next time if they ever have to call. But we did have a couple of years ago a pretty bad call, and the detective showed up on scene and was like, "How did you know what to do?" And the kiddo took the detective over to the refrigerator and showed him the magnet that I had given. It was like 911 lady taught me how to do it. And so like that's a win for me.
Absolutely.
I take that one win and I'll be good for the rest.
So way back in Jay, when I started fire prevention, everyone always says, so everywhere I've kind of gone as a firefighter, I've essentially, you're going to do fire prevention. Yeah, well, no, because in the fire service, it's like the way you get assigned stuff is when you don't show up to the meeting.
Well, you also
You're in
need
charge.
someone who has the energy because you need to be able to engage them.
And the other thing is not everybody in a fire floor can do PR.
Yeah.
And they don't want to, and that's okay. And so I say that's okay if you don't want to do it.
Yeah.
The issue is every fire chief will tell you, well, it's overtime, I've had to hire people. And I'm like, yeah, but do you want 3 guys on an engine that they do their job very good, but they want nothing to do with talking in a school with children.
Yeah.
And so,
Well, you either make or break these kids.
Andy
Right? Like some of
Turcotte,
these kids could be
he's-
firefighters
well,
because
and-
of you.
Amen. And Andy Turcotte's the deputy chief of Cumberland now, and when he was my deputy chief, he pushed for me to get hired in Westbrook. So I'll always be thankful for that because I had a great 8 years. And when I started doing fire prevention, he was always willing to listen. And I walked in because what happened was the first day I did fire prevention was Chris Shepard, Captain Shepard, came out and goes, Pino, there's 4 school buses showing up. And I didn't know. It's on the schedule, typical fire department.
Right.
And these 4 school buses showed up from an elementary. And he's like, what do you need? Because he knew my past. And I said, all right. And Alex DeWitt, love him. I love Alex. He was a brand new firefighter paramedic. And I think he was dating this girl because they've been together a long time, but he was dating. But they're 22, 23. I don't want no kids. And he was just looking at them like, it's the best birth control ever, right? 4 school
Fast
buses.
forward, now he has a little baby of his own.
Amen.
That's so
And
great.
so that day I said, hey, I'm not going to cook lunch. You need to make meatball. I'll do meatball subs. And he took off for an hour in the ambulance. And our joke is because Joey Carroll was our acting captain. You know how Joey cooks. And I will throw him under the bus right now. He can use every pot and pan in the whole fire station. Every spoon, stirrer, catering, to put 2 pieces of bread and cheese together, and then you got to wash it because whoever cooks doesn't wash. So anyway, but Joey cooks good, so you cook. So we sent Alex out, and he got like bags of frozen meat. But we said, "Well, do meatball subs. That'll be good, because you can make the meatballs in our minds. Make the meatballs, cook them." No, he got Italian. I'll never get like 5-10 bags of frozen meatballs, and Prego sauce, and probably Mexican cheese for tacos.
Excellent.
For tacos on, provolone. But he was so proud of himself, and we all ate because it's better than nothing. And then we're like, yeah, you're never cooking again, Alex. But, I'd let him
Probably has a cup set.
I would let him take care of me any day in the ambulance and fight a fire. Plus, also, I like to give little shout outs, and I know for a fact one night in a Standish ambulance, he was watching a kid drown because they got dispatched to a kid through the
He
lake.
saved, I know he jumped out and saved
And where they were was in the middle of nowhere, and he literally swam, breaking the ice, grabbed the kid and saved him.
Yep.
And wanted nothing to do with it. Like, yeah, it's just what we do. He goes, I'll never forget him telling me. I called him because I knew a few people, and they're like, hey, this guy works for your department. I just want you to know he did this. And I said, so I called him. He said, but what was I supposed to do? Watch that kid drown? And I'm like, yes, but remember, physically, not all of us could have done what you did.
Yeah.
So I am just saying, it's not the fact that we all would have wanted to have done it, but Alex, you could and did it. But anyway, back to fire prevention. I think that's a huge thing. We did have a great time, and the biggest thing that you learned, I think, was the kids just regurgitate it. And I'd tell her, 3rd grade and on, I never call it teaching, I call it relearning or reviewing, because by 3rd grade, you literally say, what did I say? And they tell you, they're excited. Yeah.
I mean, the 3rd, 4th graders now, whenever I go into the school, they're like, Miss Janelle! And they're like, how are you? When I went in, when I was pregnant, I went in and they were like so excited about the baby, and then I went in the following year and they're like, show us pictures. So it's just cool because you get that good engagement. And
I loved when I'd come to work and they'd be like, hey, kid said he did what firefighter Jerry told him. Firefighter, or Janelle. And
I mean, like, it rolled over too. Like, I do all of the community events now too, and I go in and we do these cool glitter tattoos, and you just get face to face contact with the community.
One of the big things that a lot of people learn is it's hard because PR again is not for everybody.
Yeah.
And that's why when I went to Andy and said, Andy, I'll keep doing fire prevention, but I need to hire people.
Yeah.
I can't have the duty crew there. They're always leaving for calls, which is appropriate. We're a busy service. They're even busier than when I was there. And let's hire a couple guys to be on the 3rd engine. Of course, if a condition comes in, we're going to go to work.
Yeah.
If there's a bad record, nobody available, we're going to leave and go to work. But he never fought me on it. And after that, I would give the captains what dates I needed people hired, and and I appreciate Andy for that, because that's what made that process. And of course, when I hate cancer. I hate chemo.
Who took over for you?
No, Luke does a great job.
Yeah.
Amazing job. And I kind of dumped it on him in Farmington. I felt bad. But, no, the police chief that came in.
Janine Roberts?
Janine Roberts, sorry. And Janine, if you ever hear I talked about you, it's always good. Please don't beat me up.
She's scary.
She absolutely could.
Yeah, she absolutely would. But she's so sweet. And that's why I loved her. Like, she was so supportive of whatever you guys need. And so was your boss, Greg, sorry.
Yeah.
Both great people.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, I was at a call one time on 302 at like 6:30 in the afternoon, evening, sorry. And I'm talking, and it was a lady that we would consider a frequent flyer. And we actually hadn't seen her in a long time. So I was like, oh, yeah, what's wrong? She's like, I'm so sorry. I'm like, it's okay. And she's like, no, Jerry. I mean, that's how many times we've gone there in the past. And I'm like, no, it's okay. If your belly really hurts that bad, I've never yelled at you. I mean, I'm taking you for your finger hurts now, and you're drunk in the middle of the road naked, and whatever else I picked her up for. But as I was talking to her, telling her it's okay, I see you could see she was physically sick, and she was scared and white. And I'm like, we're gonna just get the stretcher, and all of a sudden I heard, "I'm so sorry, Chief," and I turned around. It's Janine Roberts, and she said, "So and so, how you feeling?" And she came right over and she goes, "What's going on?" And she's like, "Janina, I really needed the ambulance. That's why I called them." And she goes, "I know. That's why I'm here. I was concerned." I was like, here we are in the city of Westbrook, where we're busy all the time. It's 6:30. She could have been hiding under her. I can't imagine being a police chief in the city of Westbrook in the times we're in. It's constant. But she showed up at 6:30, nowhere where she should have been, making sure that resident was okay, because she was like, yeah, identify you. You never. Amazing. When you have leaders like that, that's who you want to strive to be,
Yeah.
I think that's a big part. So let's talk a little bit. I'm going to gear it a little bit back towards not so much war stories, but tell us what it's like being the first responder and what that means to you, because
It's all one bit.
well, the big
I think one thing, because we were just talking about this on our way here, just having a discussion on what it is that we wanted to talk about. And I think the biggest thing is not the war stories, right? Like you don't actually, the bad calls, which we call war stories, aren't actually the calls that bother you. It's not the calls that stick with you. It's not, I mean, they're good to look back on and laugh about sometimes, because we all have
Use
sick
as
humor.
examples.
Yeah, but I think being a dispatcher, the hardest thing we deal with is the interdepartment issues, right? Like we deal with police and fire and admin, and we're the hub of information. So the firefighters want us to be 100% for them, and the police department wants us to be 100% for them, and admin wants us to be 100% for them when they need something. So we're kind of the glorified secretaries for all three entities, and we can't be perfect all the time. So it's,
Usually there's only two of us.
and there's only two of us in the room, and we're a pretty busy center. I mean, we take calls for Falmouth and Yarmouth, and we dispatch for Westbrook.
Do you know the number of times your phone rings in dispatch in a year?
Too many.
in a year?
In
Yeah.
a year?
A lot.
Have they ever put that out?
No,
I think you could count that high.
I bet there's a way. So if you think
there's a way to do it.
There
Greg and I
is.
just did it recently for our budget presentation, but or his budget presentation, sorry.
No, we all work on that.
I don't know. Like I think that's the hardest part for me, at least, because you want to make sure everyone's happy, and we want to make sure the community's happy, but we also really want to make sure that everyone inside our building is happy. But you're not going to be able to successfully do it. And in the position that I'm in, I have to make sure everyone's happy and my people are happy. So I have like 4 entities where I have to make sure everyone's happy and playing nice. And I think that's the hardest part of dispatch. I mean, you could probably
No, I
say
agree.
otherwise, but I agree.
So the irony in that, for me, is a lot of people might not know or don't know that dispatch, fire alarm, communications, however you want to call it, Westbrook, you're on the second floor, top floor. the fire days are below, the police are below, admin's across. So you're really kind of at the top, if you will. And it's lonely at the top.
Sure is. Sure
Right?
is.
The old proverb.
Ladder, you can't
Yeah,
climb
you
back
can't
down.
climb back down. Yeah, you can't. So the biggest part is, like when we're out on a call, with a lot, and this is why when I was the deputy chief at Thompson, I can't wait. I'm going to have some communications people from the county, which is a whole different look, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm excited to talk to them because I had a different experience over there. I had live-in students, which are college students that live in the firehouse. And when I went over and met their director and assistant director, when I first got deputy director, got hired in Thompson, I went over because you always want to go meet people. Hey, this is the voice you're hearing, and they're like, hey, if anyone ever wants to come over and sit here, they can. And I went, perfect.
I think that's the biggest thing is
And
we don't have people that do that.
I sent all the kids had to go almost, and a lot of them came back, all of them. And I even offered it to the per diems. A couple of our per diems did it.
Yeah.
I obviously offered it to the full timers. But once you actually just sit in there for 4 hours, can you imagine me in a room for 12 hours?
Yeah.
Right? And then Janelle calls out 6, so I'm there for 16, and I'm like,
Well, so we have been doing recently is our new hires for police and fire they have to come in for an hour, 2 hours. And it's good and it's bad because you have your 1 hour where nothing happens, or you have your 1 hour where you're just busy. So you either, it's a good and a bad thing, but I think it is important that we have people come and sit with us.
I
Because
wish
I
they
think,
sat with us for a minute.
I do agree. I mean, our chiefs, deputy chiefs come in a lot to either check in on us or something, and they often come in and they're like, I don't know how you guys do this job at all, because we're a different breed, right? Not a lot of people can do dispatch, and our firefighters, PD guys, they don't see it, and they don't realize that they do one call at a time, and we do 6, 7,
you got
10.
a traffic stop, a medical call, a fire alarm
And then you
going
got
off,
an admin calling in saying, "Hey, can you pull this paperwork?"
and then someone's
And
calling.
then you got someone from Falmouth or Yarmouth,
Yeah.
and you're dealing with a structure fire over there, while at the same time
and
something
then
big's happening in
somebody's defund the police sign got stolen, and what nobody realizes is this all comes at once. There's no, my daughter when she was young, I was working in Gardner, and I got force, and we used to do forces. If it wasn't when somebody called out, it was someone was on vacation, do it a week before because nobody picked up the overtimes, and then they force you, so you had a weekly plan. Very helpful. And so I said to the kids, hey, I'm not going to be able to pick you up, whatever day it was, say it's Friday morning, I'll be there. Meme, your mom's going to bring you to Pepe and Meme Pinot, Kit Kate's, and I'll be up to the lake after I get out of work.
Yeah.
And of course, Allie, again, like kids, they have no filter, and it's just true on. She goes, Dad. Oh, so I was Daddy-O back then. Daddy-O. I know people need ambulances and fire trucks. I know. Like, okay. And this is when I had a flip phone, so I'm just picturing her mannerisms as we're talking. And she says, but can't they just call the next day you're working? And I was like, that would be a marvelous idea if they could, right? Can you schedule, and then you guys could be like, hey,
Gotta go.
can we have the fire at this time? You can call with your shots fired. Then you get your traffic. You can pull somebody over from noon to 12:30 and defund the police. You can call from 5:45 to 5:50. So then you can have everybody in their own little time slot. And
Well, it's just, by you saying that is, I think, too, it's for the fire service. You guys are sitting around the table, you're just joking and smoking, and then boom, the structure fire comes in, right?
not all the time.
Okay, I'm sorry.
We do work during the day.
Sometimes.
There is
So you're
training.
just sitting around, right? And you're just joking, smoking, and then fire comes in, and then you have to be ready, where you have that moment to
We
process
prepare.
in your brain while you're driving there. Like, we're headed to this, we know what to expect. Dispatch is saying there's someone trapped, or dispatch is saying someone's hurt, something XYZ, right? You guys have the ability, and PD too, they have that ability to
Prepare.
come to terms with it, right? Like they can.
This
kind
is
of
what I'm
process
going
it.
to.
Where for dispatch, we could be sitting there and we could literally be joking and smoking, doing absolutely nothing, and then you answer the phone and someone's right there in a crisis, and you have to switch on. And I think that's a big difference between dispatch and someone who's a first responder. on the field.
We get
Because
notified.
There's just, you guys have the ability to sometimes turn your brain into a protective mode where we don't have that. The same thing with if you guys are on a structure fire or PD's on a call and they're mic clicking us and all you hear is screaming, or there's some fire and all you hear is help or mayday or something. We can't do anything. Or PD, they can drive faster. They can get there faster. They can grab the person. They can do what they need to do. You guys can do what you need to do to help your coworkers. Where us, we're stuck. We're just sitting there and there's nothing we can do.
That would drive me crazy.
I think that's like
And then
probably one of the
piggybacking off of that is a lot of times we will send you to a call, a medical something, and it's an intense call. You get there, you get the person, and you bring them to the hospital. We don't know the outcome. We get no outcome, which we have been working with, especially with the fire department now, to try to get us the outcome because we never get that closure.
That's
They get there,
hard.
we think
Yeah.
the person's literally dying, and they get them to the hospital, and they're going to be fine, but we don't know that.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like it's
We wanna
always
close
an
the
open
circle.
end.
We've been trying to close the circle.
Yeah.
And we had a little bit of issues a couple months ago because they changed the HIPAA laws and there's a lot of things that we can't close the circle with. But there's also ways around it, and I think it's big for, if you circle back to peer support, I think it's big for people's mental health because you can't take these
agree.
bad calls and then just be left in the
What
dark.
happened?
And
You just
right.
you get left with what happened.
Right.
We experienced that too on the
Even
trucks.
medics, yeah. I feel like
It-
we've talked about
there's-
it, even medics. have
We
said that.
yeah, there's times where you drop somebody off and they're sick, they're really sick, but you have no idea why. Like nothing adds up.
Well, we've been
Yeah.
doing, I think
But
we've
we
been
do have, I will say, Maine Med, Central Maine, and maybe all the, I'm sure all the hospitals have this, so I'm not speaking poorly about anyone I haven't transported to, but in the old days, you texted I didn't text, I flip phone called them, or flip phone text them. But now I message them, as my daughter says. You have friends that can give you a wink, wink, cool, oh.
Well, we've been doing that lately. Is the fire guys have actually been reaching out to us and
Good.
asking us, like, have you heard of what happened after that call? Because they didn't know, and so they want us, either a detective took over the case, or we can call Remus and we can get somewhat of an update.
It's really big to let you guys have that closure because I 100% agree. I coded a guy one time in a little town I grew up in who was working for community emergency services. I was with Joe, Ben, Timmy, Matt Nadu. Anyway, we had a cardiac arrest. And I'm just going to add this part. I had to wipe his eyes out because of came up out of the tube. Yeah.
No.
And I'll tell you, we've talked before when I call, I call you sometimes because, especially when Jenny's sleeping. Because I know it's like waking the dead. But I make my first call, and I always tell her, I talk to Sally first. And she goes, I know you talk to Sally first. But I just have to, just talk about what happened because you get to a call sometimes, and I think Dan behind the camera can nod his head, and you're like, we got a chance at this. And a chance doesn't mean they're going to get up and walk away and be like, hey, I'm living, thank you. It's maybe you got into the hospital alive so the family can come in, say goodbye, and do it on everyone's accord, which I think is huge. To me, that's a save for the mental health and for everybody, for the family. That's for the family. But yeah, there are calls that burn me where I'm like, man, why didn't you come back? Like we did everything right, everything. It just wasn't their day. But that guy I was telling you about, we were all like, yeah, we did everything we could. We're in the hospital, I know another star's name. I'm sorry. He was well into his 70s, so I wish he would live older. But hey, hallelujah, had a good life.
70's pretty long. It's long enough for me.
2 weeks later, I was pulling. So the way their kitchen was is when you bent down to pull something out of the stove, your back was to the door people could knock on, and they'd come into the kitchen.
Okay.
So I'm bending over, and I hear, and I'm like, hey, someone's at the door. And they came in, and Joe owns it. He's like, hey. And I turned around, and there's the dead guy. And I'm like, hi. And he talked and almost just sat there. And one of the first things he said was, I don't know what you guys did to my chest, but it hurts. But I'm okay, and I'm like,
Sorry.
but
Welcome.
so what's
The
it?
worst is when you're taking a call, you're doing CPR, and you hear you're like, nope, you're doing good. They're like, oh, what's that? You're like, no, just keep
So-
going.
Just keep pushing.
Tell
It's all
me,
right.
tell me about that. What's it like giving instructions now? EMD, explain that, Sally. What a lot of people think it's 911 on the TV where they're like 911, click click. Oh, there's an earthquake.
Oh, that would be
We'll
excellent.
save you, right?
That would be excellent.
We just happen to have
We'll
an
save you.
earthquake deneutralizer tool.
I think the hardest part is, especially in the tough calls, people think it's like 911 on the screen where they call and instantly someone's at their side.
Right.
Whereas, I mean, in Westbrook, we have good response times, but they still have a response time. And people don't understand that it may take 6 or 7 minutes to get from the station to their house. So we help them through it, and we will talk them through whatever we need to talk them through. But the whole time, they're just asking, "Where are they? Where are they?"
We get a lot of repanics, right? Like you get them calmed down,
Yeah.
and then they're like, "It's been 2 minutes. Where are you?"
Can you imagine the county?
Well,
No.
we deal with it sometimes with
Yeah,
Falmouth.
Falmouth.
Yeah,
Falmouth is
that's
a
true.
little bit slower.
Wyndham, yeah, Falmouth, out in
So
that area.
especially like when they're like, "It's been 10 minutes. Where are they?" And I look at, we have a timer all the time, so I look at the timer and it's been a minute and a half, and I'm like, "They're
Well,
coming as fast
so-
as they can."
I've been a firefighter in a small town where you respond with your vehicle, and I've been watching a house burning down, and you're like, "Where is everybody?"
Yeah.
It's
I mean, I get it.
and it's been a minute.
You have to put
You know what I
yourself
mean?
in their shoes. Like
Yeah.
it's been a minute and a half, but to them it's been
A long time.
45
Do you guys get
minutes.
taught
Where
how
are
to control the caller sometimes?
Yes.
Do you have to do that?
We have to. That's yeah. So
Is
we
it like
have to-
job.
is it like a throat
Yes.
punch with love?
sometimes.
Yeah.
It really
Sometimes without love.
I mean, I think that's like we learn those communication skills, and we learn those skills to get someone to go from here to here. But then you have to know how to get them from here to here, and then they go back up and get them back down again. And
Yeah, that's
And you all have your own way, I'm assuming, because that's the way we do it on the ambulance. Like,
right.
I was on an ambulance for a long time, and God love Jerry Preventure. I know retirement's treating him well. I follow him on Facebook, and I call him once in a while. But he was a very black and white fire captain. But he always had your sense. And the one thing he always called me Firefighter Pino. And I remember one night we were sitting there, and we'd been up all night chasing calls, and I was third on the ambulance, and on the engine, and our medic was struggling with a patient, so he just looks at me and he goes, "Go." Come on. Okay. And when I was in the medic,
yeah,
and
I
I'm
mean, we
like,
definitely have some people that are better than others.
yeah, and that's okay. You know, it's like the PR stuff. You send somebody else.
Yeah.
So I went up, and I'm like, "Hey, mind if I help?" And he was like, "No, please do." So we get the guy in the hospital, and anyway, him and Captain Shepard always had a bet whose crew could get more compliments than the other guy's crew of all the two people, right? So they were, Jerry's like, "You just keep getting those compliments, Jerry." I was like, "Yeah." And so anyway, the next morning, Jerry's like, we were just talking, like, that's big for us at the fire station. My first podcast was about the table, So the next morning after a rough shift, the new shift came on. We're all sitting at the table, having coffee, just talking, venting, and, they're like, "Oh, you guys had a rough night?" And Captain French is like, "Yeah." And Firefighter Pino. And he's a farmer, he's big, and he's like, "I want to punch you sometimes." And I'm like, "Me?" And he goes, "Your hair's always messy," and you're like, "Oh, and you just me." And all these people are like, "Oh, Jerry." And he's like, "I don't know why they like you, I'd punch you." And I'm like, "Well, I wouldn't act like that to you." And he goes, "I know, but you just keep those compliments coming." But he's like, "I don't know how you do it."
A lot of our police, I know back in the day when you were working for us, would say we would be dealing with a patient, and then Jerry would show up, and we would all be relieved because we knew Jerry.
Jerry would take it over.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because I think a lot of times, though, it's not Jerry. It's some of us have a talent of reading the room. Like if you read the room, like if I came in here, I wouldn't treat you like a elementary school teacher. You're at a pub, I'd kind of check out who you are. You kind of go with it. And something I learned a long time ago, like, especially I use this as a supervisor, if I see somebody bearing down on me because something's wrong, there's a crisis, it's never a crisis, but it's not like you're on a scene. Then that's a whole different thing. But when you're at the station, so it's like, you could see they're coming. It's something's wrong, and you go, "Hey, how's your morning?" And you throw them off. You talk first, and they're like, it's good. It's well, how's your kids and wife? How's your husband? How's your dog?
I do that.
How's your cat? Whatever.
We have cameras in our dispatch
Oh,
center,
yeah.
so I can see the OIC walking upstairs, and I've said it to her before. I've been like, here it comes. And you hear the click of the door, and I go, "Hey, how are ya?"
Yeah.
And then it throws them off.
Instantly throws the brain off.
But then it takes a minute. You know, it makes them take a breath.
They're not coming at it 100.
100, yes.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, but a lot of times, a lot of people don't realize you might not get any of the information. We went to.
You mean like we get? Well, what we get is completely different than what's actually.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You get information, you give it to us. I mean, I've been on calls where they tell us it's a 70-year-old male. You get there, it's a 13-year-old female.
I just had one of those calls.
I was gonna say me too.
My caller told me it was an 89-year-old male, and they get there, and it was a 45-year-old male. He was not having chest pain. He had stomach problems, and I was like,
I had one last week, and it was this lady was like, "I just need help moving my husband up in the bed because he's just too low, and I can't move him." He was dead.
Yeah.
She's like, "He's fine. He's totally fine. No problems at all." And then they get there, and they were like, 10:48. I was like, "Oh, okay."
well, that escalated. I
Go ahead.
had one that, no, it's fine. There was a car accident the other day. Person on the line was like, "No, I'm with the driver. She's fine. Everybody's fine. No injuries." They get there. Fire department goes, "We have 2 ambulances. We have 4 patients." And I was like, "What?
Yeah.
From where?"
And I think it's a disconnect too between responders and us. Is I don't think they realize we only get what we can get, and sometimes what we're getting is a completely different picture than what they're actually seeing on TV.
I had a lift assist one time, and the person coming in for us was late, and that was this person's MO. And so me and my partner were like, "Oh, of course." And at 15 after the hour, we still, you take the call.
Yeah.
So we go out on the call, and because the other trucks were on calls already, and it was a weird driveway, and he backed up like, in my mind, 30 times, but it was twice because we've been up all night. I'm like, when you figure out how, and we were partners all the time, so I was just, what can we say on the podcast without saying that? Breaking bones, teasing. We were married, I'm trying to, you see where I'm going with this? Kicking soccer balls, how about that? So,
There you go.
yeah,
Go with that
kicking
one.
soccer balls.
I like
So I get out of the truck, I literally get out of the truck while he's like doing the Austin Powers. I'm like, "Hey, when you figure out how to drive, let me know." And I slam the door, because I'm ready to go home. We're tired. And I go bebopping up the stairs of this raised ranch, and you go up the deck, and you can tell not to use the first door. So I go running up to the deck, and of course I don't have my radio. I don't have the jump kit. It's a lift assist. I'm going to throw this guy in his chair, and we're going to get out.
There you go.
Fucking, and the TV's on, and the 89, 90-year-old woman standing there in her little kimono bathrobe, and I'm like, "Hello, interesting attire." And he's just sitting there in the chair. I was like, "Oh my!" I'm like, "Lift assist? Yeah, I can't get him up to come to bed." And I'm like, "It's 8 o'clock in the morning." Like, I don't know. I'm like,
How long has he been like that?
"How long has he been like that?" "Well, we were talking and we were gonna go to bed, but then he didn't want to come, so I've been pulling on him." I don't know how long. I mean, it's like pull him to the floor. Yeah, I pull him to the floor and I just start CPR, right? And I'm like, and I hear. No, I'm gonna kill him. So my partner at the time comes running up the stairs, and I hear him, under his breath, because he's calling me on the radio, I guess. But I didn't know because I didn't have the radio. Because he's like, "What do you want? Do you need the stair chair? Do you need a kit? Do you need to sign him off? Where are we at, Jerry?" And I'm ignoring him, but he thinks I'm not. Even if I'm just doing CPR. So he gets to the top of the stairs, and he literally could raise one eyebrow up. And the reason I'm not using his name is I don't want some family to be like, "Hey, kill my dad," No, he was gone a long time.
Yeah.
But anyway, his eyebrow went up. He could do the one eyebrow thing, and he goes, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "We call this CPR. Would you call for another truck? I can't get the mom. No, go get the kit, the monitor, the truck box." And he went, "Keep doing that." And I'm like, we worked,
Yeah, thanks.
I was like, "Thanks for the support, Mom. We got this." And So the other crew shows up and we're like, what do you need? I'm like, can you get her ready to go? And all I hear from the background is, should I put a bra on? And I'm like, oh, God.
Actually, you'd be surprised how many times people are like, I just need to put some clothes on before they get here.
Yeah.
And we're like, they can help you with that.
Yeah.
No, they
Or
don't need to see
they're
that.
out front they're in the first floor apartment. You get there and they're on the 9th floor, and you're like, "Why did you do that?" Well, my friend said he'd watch me until you got here. And I'm like, "You stay downstairs."
Have the friend come down.
Yeah.
Not you go up.
Well, I think it's been nice to talk about kind of giving people a view of what dispatch is like is huge, right? Like, I think a lot of people don't know that. And I think I want to do a timeout on this podcast. And what we'll do is, after I meet with some other people from other areas, maybe get you guys to come together and we can talk a little bit more about the peer support, the issues dispatchers go through with calls. I think that would help a lot of people in your line of work and in my line of work to realize it's funny to throw a joke. It's like police and fire in some places hate each other, and I've never understood that. You know, it's like a rivalry.
I think it's the Narcan.
Well, yeah. No, it's not the Narcan. That's always been there, the rivalry. But I've always looked at it, rivalries are fun. It keeps you, it's fun. It keeps things like, I read a meme, and it's got to be true because it was on the internet. If you tease people, if you pick on them, and not in bullying, I'm not encouraging bullying, I'm not encouraging being mean. But what me and you do is banter. Banter.
All the time.
Positive banter. That helps us unload stress. Positive banter in the trucks, in the fire service. I'm assuming it's in police department. I know it's in EMS.
We definitely do it.
We
Yeah.
do it all the time.
But it's kind of like those, it's a real love relationship where dating or married or engaged, it's the same thing because we bantered like that because you're never going to agree on everything.
Right.
And sometimes you just need to healthily vent. So maybe that's something we can do in the future if you guys are willing, because I think one of the oldest jobs, because it's old, we've always had dispatchers. But what we don't understand is what you guys go through when you're answering those emergency calls. You're getting the fun stuff too, Oh, my daughter called 911. My son has called 911, and both times the state trooper showed up going, "Hey," and I'm like, "Hi, what's up?" "Oh, your child's on the phone in there. We can't get them together." Like, my daughter was like, "No, he's fine. He's playing with Trevi. They're playing wiffle ball, tennis ball. They're fine." And they're like, I went in and I'm like, "Allie," and we're at my dad's house because he had a phone plugged in and it looked like the old-fashioned style. She's in there just talking away, and I'd look in the window and I'd see her, and the kids always talked on the phone. I had no idea they plugged it in.
I think you saying the fun calls, those aren't really fun. Those are the ones that actually wear on us and make us go crazy.
Really?
Because they're just constant and it's unnecessary.
So that might be a Jerry personality thing.
Yeah.
So I was talking to guys in Lewiston. Everyone says Lewiston Fire doesn't do EMS. Completely incorrect. Yes, they do
so
not.
funny because we were literally just talking about this last weekend.
They literally don't have a EMS license. And, they don't have ambulances.
They don't have ambulances. Yeah.
But a lot of them have EMS licenses personally, or they've worked for other services with ambulances, or currently as a
So they
part-time
do it
job.
when they respond with their trucks.
But when they go on the engines, they do every Delta and Echo call in Lewiston.
Yeah.
There are days where all I see them go do is medical assist for
Right.
overdoses, CPR. So they don't get what I call the fun call.
Yeah.
And I need those calls for me personally because it's like, all right. And I always go back to my drunk cowboy. It's a male with a hat and his rainbow boa, naked, running around his apartment, need to ride to Austin. Okay. Or the one guy I picked up and he was "How you doing?" And I'm like, "Good. Here for somebody with arm pain?" And he's like, "It's me." And I'm like, "Okay, well, what's wrong with your arm?" In 1967, I got in a rollover and I got a bolt in my elbow. It's hurting. And I'm like, "All right, why don't you walk with me and sit here?" You know what I mean? Those are the calls where you're kind of like, "All right, man, you want to go to the hospital? You can go to the hospital."
I feel like, I guess I could not speak for both of us, but I feel like more serious calls
Huh?
are better for me, and I can process
Those
better.
are fun for
Then,
us.
like the stupid calls where people call in, those are taxing on us.
Yeah.
Personally,
We have a
Where-
couple people where me and my partner will literally, I will answer this one person if they call, because they call all the time.
Yeah.
And I love talking to them. I think they're hilarious. But my partner she cannot handle her at all. So, and then my partner will answer calls from another person who I just think is very taxing and I can't handle it. So we play like that.
Like the fun
different
calls
for
to you
everybody.
for us are just not fun. And we like the serious calls where things are actually happening and we can actually help someone.
Serious call. Well, how old are you again?
How old am I saying? For the longest time this year, I've been saying I'm 32. I'm 31.
Okay. Your tech is.
No, I think you're 32.
I don't know how old I am. I'm sorry.
Well, at least you can't have her ID stolen. But looking back though, you're in the right age though, because you're like, yeah, hit me. But like yesterday, I worked at Freeport because I don't want to lose my paramedic skills, and so I worked there on the weekends and sometimes. And we went on a call, and it was to a facility. It's unresponsive. We got there, she had a DNR. We're gonna do palliative care to some extent, but it was kind of vague what was wrong with her. Nothing was really wrong. So we helped the crew. We responded as a backup crew. They got going. Then they're like, oh, we need another provider. Did the patient dip or not? And I'm like, yeah, just another, sad story I'm going to see. But actually, no, the lady just woke up and tried biting my partner. So, yeah. Well, when you wake up and, but if you met Tony, you'd be like, no, nobody would bite Tony. So, yeah. So that kind of made me chuckle. I'm like, she tried biting you, like this 90-something year old
That's
person.
hilarious.
Yeah, like that. I'm like, I'm more, but I guess, I've seen enough.
Yeah.
Those calls are easy to me.
But we've seen enough too. I think it's more of, it's frustrating because we're busy and we're on the phone with someone who's like, there's a chicken in my backyard, while at the same time you're doing CPR with someone else.
It's hard.
So I think the mundane
Those
calls are harder for us because it's frustrating.
those do burn me.
Yeah.
Like when you there's several calls, but I'll never forget. We had a 2-year-old code in Worcester one time, and that was back when we had like 4 or 5 trucks during the day, and everybody was on something absolutely ridiculous. And here's, these other 2 members of our team screaming for backup, and I believe there was a fire going on, so there wasn't any fire. You know what I mean? Everybody was busy, and I'm sitting there trying to get a lady down from 5 flights because her hair hurt or her ear hurt,
Right.
And yes, those.
I think those burn us more.
They burn you.
Yeah.
They sit with you.
We were just talking before the podcast started about how, like, Sally and I we all do it, but I think Sally and I, being best friends that we are in the same job, we don't really work together that much anymore, but we process the calls together and then just kind of move on. I think with the harder calls, it's easier to do that because you can very well disassociate from it, where the annoying ones that are just like not really that important, they just stick with you, and you're like, this person never should have called 911 when you have grandma who's like, my husband, it's just, I think those affect
People
us.
often ask us, like, what's the worst call you had today?
Never ask a dispatcher that.
Never ask a dispatcher.
Never ask
Because
any
you
of
don't
those
want to
things.
hear the answer. First,
Not only that, but we just want to talk about it.
Do you remember the time we were at Pedro Hare's and a lady stood and you told her what she did, and I was helping a cab driver, but you told her I was a paramedic firefighter or a firefighter paramedic, whoever you said it. And she looked at both of us and said, tell me each of you's worst call.
yeah.
And I
We
just was
we
like,
now say, whenever we go out together and someone's like, oh, what do you guys do? We say we're poodle trainers.
Yeah.
yep.
Because
I'm a
there's
cab
a lot
driver.
of that. And
Yeah.
like, the thing is, they don't want to hear our worst call. And the only thing that can come to mind for me, what's your worst call that you had this week? I think of the annoying calls.
Yeah.
Because
Right.
I've blocked out the bad calls.
Yeah.
And all I can think of is
But we have to, we're not going to keep going.
Right.
If you live in that bad call,
Yeah.
I literally got in a fight a couple days ago after a call because it put me into another call. It's normal.
I think that's the one you FaceTimed us about. We were talking about.
Yes. Yes.
But that's, again, why we all kind of stick together, because we get it. You can't call someone who's makes sandwiches on the side and tell them this happened
You
today.
can start here, not at the beginning. Oh, I hit your thingy. Sorry. All right. Well,
I think that's it.
on that note, Jerry the Klutz still remains. Janelle and Sally, I want to say thank you very much for Yeah, it would be great to do it again, I think. But like I said, I really appreciate it. Obviously, our friendship is stayed now that I don't work in Westbrook, because we still get together and talk all the time. Yeah, I know.
Sometimes.
It's a love-hate relationship, I'm sure. They hate to love me. So for everybody that watched today that is interested in dispatching, I know that communication centers are always looking for help. Definitely reach out to the center where you might want to work, or anyone, and try and go check it out, because there's not a lot of people applying to do our jobs when it comes to communications, fire, police, EMS, and it's a great job. It's rewarding. You get friendships like this. You get meaningful friendships, sort of like this. But Dan, as I've said before, Dan was my preceptor as a paramedic, and now look, we're together again doing something, and I think that's kind of cool. Back to the family thing, we all kind of go back, and that's how we survive. So for today on Mr. Bacon's Neighborhood, we're going to wrap up from Gertie's Grind. We're going to go dump the coffee cups, probably turn on some music, and as my son says on his 21st birthday, I'll have a Jerry. And so I hope everyone stays safe. Let's get spring and summer coming. Tell that person you love him.